Welcome to the Republican Professor. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Alan Beck. Thanks for being here, Alan.
Thank you for having me.
Alan is an attorney, civil rights attorney, and a constitutional law attorney. And I asked him on the podcast because I noticed that he has recently won some very impressive cases before federal courts in the Ninth Circuit. And uh, the Ninth Circuit has traditionally not been friendly to certain civil liberties that are enumerated and protected in the Constitution. And so thought we would bring Mr. Alan Beck in to talk about some of those cases and how he won those cases, the importance of the cases, and maybe a little bit about him as a person and how he got into this whole thing. Does that sound pretty good to you, Alan?
That sounds great, Lucas.
That's great. And Alan, I originally thought you were in Hawaii. Um, but I got excited about that because I did my undergrad days in Hawaii. But you're a California-based attorney?
I am, but I work a lot in Hawaii, so yeah, I'm out there very regularly.
Hmm. What's the connection with Hawaii, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, I have a lot of family out there, and that's where I was originally licensed to practice law. After law school, I decided I was going to spend some time out there, so I began my practice out there, and I've just kept it um,
Great.
ever since.
Oh, where did you go to law school?
I went to the University of San Diego.
Okay, great. Um, that's this maybe we could press into this butterfly knife case since we brought up Hawaii. You recently won a case before the Ninth Circuit on appeal. Were you the counsel at the district court level as well?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you do appellate um, lawyering as well? That's cool.
Yes, yeah, I do every aspect of federal court litigation.
Um, so the panel you drew at the Ninth Circuit for this. Okay, well, let's get clear about what the issue was. Could you tell us what the issue was in that case? And I'm thinking of Teeter versus Lopez.
In the state of Hawaii, there's a complete ban on butterfly knives. Now, butterfly knives are a type of pocket knife that has two handles. That's very popular among the Filipino community. There's a little bit of a split of historical authority on where butterfly knives are originally from, but they,
Oh,
at very least, some people believe they were originally made in France. Some people say they were originally made in the Philippines, and I personally think it's probably an issue of concurrent evolution. Some French people made it. Butterfly knives, it's not that complicated of design, and Filipinos came up with the same design out in the Philippines. But they are uh, from they're called the balisong knife because they are at least most popularly known in on a part of the Philippines known as balisong, and
really?
they're very popular in Filipino martial arts. Eskrima Kali uh, are the traditional martial arts forms out in the Philippines, and Hawaii actually has about a quarter of the population of Hawaii either is Filipino or has some Filipino ancestry. And even among the non-Filipino population, there's a very strong tradition of Filipino martial arts being practiced. So, Hawaii completely bans the use of one of the of a knife. It's no different than a knife that we're used to, other than the fact it has two handles essentially.
Yeah. I had a butterfly knife for a time when I was a kid. I don't have one anymore. I don't know what happened to it actually. I went into the Navy. That's how I ended up in Hawaii. Originally, I was ordered to go to Hawaii by the U.S. government, and but yeah, I know what you're talking about with the handle, and there's a certain way to do it, and it looks kind of flashy and cool. I guess you can open it with one hand, and you can close it with one hand. Do you know why Hawaii originally banned those? Or
Well,
what was the reason they said?
Hawaii has a number of weapons restrictions, and one of them is a switchblade restriction. The switchblade restriction is was deemed by a lot of law enforcement to cover the butterfly knife restriction, and they were just trying to ban both, at least in practice. And well, a fellow was caught with a butterfly knife and charged under the Switchblade Act, as has been done before. Went up to the Hawaii Supreme Court, and I believe it was either 1993 or 1994. The Hawaii Supreme Court said the police have just been doing it wrong this whole time. These are not switchblades; they just are distinguishable. They don't have a spring. They don't automatically
Right.
open. You
Yeah.
know, they require human force.
Yes.
And so, in that case, the Hawaii Supreme Court said overturned the conviction because the gentleman a didn't have a switchblade. He had a butterfly knife, and there's two different things. So we had a period in Hawaii where butterfly knives were ostensibly legal, and that made a lot of the legislature irate. They passed a bill, gosh, I want to say 1999,
Hmm.
that banned butterfly knives specifically. And what they said was that these are commonly used in crime. The rationale was people are caught with butterfly knives quite often. And so these are inherently illegal, inherently tools of the criminal. But if you actually start looking at why people were getting caught, that the predominant reason was truant high school students get caught by the police and they happen to have butterfly knives
Hmm.
with them. Let's imagine go back in time. We're both 16. We're hanging out with our buddies.
Yeah.
Instead of going to sixth period, you
Right.
know, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're in the park. Cops show up, say, "Hey, are you in high school?" Well, it's a crime to be out loitering during sixth period. They get tickets. They happen to have a butterfly knife on. You know,
Hmm.
um, and the point is,
Yeah. I had a butterfly knife when I was that age.
yeah, these aren't. There wasn't really evidence of criminal use with the butterfly
Right.
knife. There was evidence
That's an
of
important point.
crimes being very minor crimes, mind you, being committed while you happen to have the
Yeah.
possession of a butterfly knife. And
Right.
some
Right.
guy said
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
court about this is, well, I'm sure everyone was wearing pants.
Yeah.
You know,
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I and that doesn't mean that pants are inherently tools of the criminal, right?
Yeah.
And
Right. Right.
so, but yeah, as another matter, I mean, look, just so happens that Hawaii has a very large Filipino population, the largest per
Right.
capita in the United States. So
That's
yeah, it
true.
makes sense that instead of a pocket knife, which maybe a truant high school student in Texas or Wyoming would have, they happen to have butterfly knives. That doesn't mean
Right.
that has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that there's a large Filipino population, and these happen to be traditional Filipino tools. And in the Philippines, I mean, here's just one example of the use of a uh, butterfly knife. Now, remember, these knives go back, centuries. I think 1,000 years. So the Filipinos at the time, they didn't have a lot of our modern locking technology.
Hmm.
So you're climbing a tree,
Yeah.
and if you fall out of the tree, you don't have to worry about getting stabbed by your knife. Let's say you're climbing up to the top to cut a branch down, or maybe a coconut, let's say.
Okay.
And if you have this normal knife, you're worried about potentially falling and getting stabbed or cut by that knife. With the butterfly knife design, if you fall out, there's absolutely no chance you're going to be injured because the blade is inside of both handles.
Right.
And so, in addition to the martial arts, the Filipino butterfly knife has a long history of being used as a utility tool.
That is an important point.
Yeah,
That's very
and
interesting.
and also because it can be opened with one hand, you can hold on to the tree while you're climbing, and open it up and cut whatever you're cutting down while holding on to the tree.
Okay, so in other words, what you're saying is it's actually safer. There's safety features in the knife that would protect human life,
Yeah, absolutely.
even outside of a criminal context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just an aside, in a self-defense situation, our expert in the trial court, Burke Richardson, has been studying Filipino martial arts for decades. And one of the things that he brought up is that in the traditional Filipino martial arts, they train to um, um, defensive tactics without removing the blade. So if the Filipino butterfly knife is typically inside of two metal handles.
Hmm.
So if you're dealing with, say, a drunk or someone else is being aggressive to you, but isn't necessarily engaging with lethal hostility, what a martial arts practitioner will do is attack them without removing the knife. So instead, you're just hitting them with the blunt handle.
Kind
And
of like
that's
a
just something,
baton.
yeah, like a baton. And
Yeah.
that's a feature that's not available with a normal folding knife.
That's interesting.
So, there's a number of reasons why the butterfly knife is a practical and safer alternative than using a standard pocket knife, especially in a scenario where, centuries back, 1,000 years back, where you didn't have modern spring technology.
Right. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah, and
I mean, it's almost like the ban on this knife, you could maybe possibly even make the argument that I don't know if you did, I don't know if you needed to or wanted to, but you could make the argument that it targeted an ethnic minority.
well, I certainly said that it had a disproportionate impact
Yeah.
on a ethnic minority. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as suggesting that they were attempting to target specifically Filipino people. But I will say the history of Hawaii is one where gun control and weapons control has had has been done to attack the typically Polynesian people because there were so many people brought in to work on the plantations, and they wanted to keep them from owning weapons. Because a lot of these people were kept essentially as indentured servants. So there's this is part of a larger pattern throughout history in
Yeah.
Hawaii of keeping weapons away from people that the government didn't want to have, and the wealthy landowners that owned the plantations didn't want to have weapons.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like the restrictions in the South before the Civil War, or even after the Civil War,
there's a lot of parallels.
for black codes and stuff.
So another thing that we brought up
Okay.
is our expert beat some of there's a lot of myths associated with the butterfly knife, um, and the switchblade. In there's actually court opinions that say that the switchblade butterfly knife are somehow inherently dangerous. And so what my expert did was he did demonstrations. There's a video of this on YouTube, by the way,
Cool.
of him pulling out the butterfly knife. And he was able to show that because a butterfly knife takes a number of different movements to open, it's slower to open than a traditional pocket knife. And it's much slower than a number of uh, modern folding knives that have a clip on it. So
Right.
these clips make it so that the second that the pocket knife is removed from the pocket, it starts to open.
Right.
So, and that's even true with a switchblade. The switchblade is slower than the vast majority of modern knives. And in fact, our expert is able to open just a standard pocket knife without any enhancements in the exact same amount of time that it takes to open up a switchblade. And the butterfly knife is by far slower. So that really beat back the whole notion that butterfly knives somehow have a inherently dangerous characteristics. In fact, all the evidence shows that butterfly knives are both safer for the user and for the general public than other knives.
Oh, yeah. Going back to the example you gave with the truant kids, hanging out and then getting caught by the police and they have butterfly knives. And then you made the example of the pants. I wanted to press into that a bit because I think that's an insightful point with the way these things are argued typically. I think it gets at I think the key issue in Second Amendment, the strange things about the Second Amendment, why people are so polarized. I think it's this issue that um, the tool, and I heard you use that word, tool, right? The tool um, makes people afraid. They want to ban it, or actually, I think a better use of the word, the language would be to criminalize innocent conduct. And and it gets to the point where people can't quite see. I mean, I think in a Socratic method kind of way, when I do my with my students, they can see it's innocent conduct uh, after a few questions and a few analogies, like you mentioned with the pants. It's innocent conduct to wear pants. You could wear pants while committing a crime. It doesn't mean that the pants, you criminalize the use of pants. And you might think that that's an extreme example, but let's go to, okay, every time you get a ticket for violating the vehicle code, right? Um, were those kids getting tickets for misdemeanors or were they getting tickets for infractions for the truancy? Hmm. I'm not sure if I lost the connection. All right, we're back. Minor tech difficulties. We were talking about criminalizing innocent conduct. And the last thing I asked, and I wasn't sure if you heard me, was that regarding the analogy with pants and stuff like that, were those kids getting truancy tickets? Is that a misdemeanor or is that an infraction?
I think it's an infraction.
Okay. So take an example with like another infraction, like violation of the penal code, right? Or the vehicle code. Every time that happens, somebody has a car, right? It doesn't mean so. Okay, cars are associated with violations of the vehicle code, but car is a very useful tool, right? And cars have lawful purposes, and uh, So the way we treat vehicles is a lot different than we treat like butterfly knives, is my point. Um, the vehicle could be used to commit an infraction, unlike the pants aren't really used, I guess. Well, I guess depends on what you mean by use. But the we are so comfortable with these incredibly dangerous things called vehicles that even when kids get infractions, we focus on the use of the car, right? The use. So what's happening with the knives is it's a simple possession criminalization, right? It's not really focused on the use of the knife at the moment. Like the Billy Club, for example. Okay, so I really loved Roger Benita's opinion in the Billy Club. You recently won a case, Fouts. Wait, what was it? Fouts versus Bonta?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, you know, I'm going to link those cases so that people can read them. But on the second page, Judge Benitez, and this is from the 23rd of February, 2024. His, did you get summary judgment?
Yes, I got summary judgment.
Awesome. Okay, so on line 16 on page 2, Judge Benitez says a young girl is walking home from school one evening. She's walking through part of the town where robberies, assaults, rapes have occurred, where youth gangs are known to frequent, and where unrestrained dogs are known to roam. The young girl is wearing baggy, oversized sweatshirt, sometimes associated with gang affiliation. In her hand, she's holding a billy, a baton, just like the ones the law enforcement officers often carry for their protection. An officer sees her walking and sees that she is in possession of the baton. The officer arrests her for violating California Penal Code, the relevant statute, right? And she's handcuffed, placed in the back of a police car, transported to the police station, booked, fingerprinted, initiated into the juvenile court system. This is the key, line 3 on page 3. Although there is no evidence that she ever struck or threatened, those are crimes, struck or threatened to strike anyone with a baton, or that she's in danger of hurting herself with it, her mere possession of it is enough. And similar with the knives, it's a mere possession issue, right? That's the issue I have with it is we're criminalizing innocent conduct, and we're hurting people who just want to defend themselves, or to be ready to defend themselves, to be able to defend themselves. And so tell us about the Billy Club case.
Well, California has a ban on billy clubs. Now, what's important to note with California's law is what is a billy club. Now, traditionally, the billy club is just simply, the policeman's baton. And however, California has taken a very unique approach on the billy club. The billy club in California is can be any stick. For example, the California Court of Appeals has said that a table can be a billy club in the right circumstances if you have self-defense.
A
A
table?
baseball, a table leg, the leg
Oh,
of a table.
wow.
Yeah, that's a table leg. And
Oh my gosh.
a baseball bat is a billy club.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, dude.
so there's some things that are always billy clubs. If you have a collapsible baton in California, it doesn't matter why you have it. It's a felony to have. Well, it's a wobbler. I guess in theory it could be a misdemeanor, but it's potentially a felony. And then any stick can also potentially be a billy club, and again, potentially be a felony in the right circumstances. So
Mere possession, not the
mere
use, right? Not the use, not in the
mere
threatening,
possession.
not terrorizing somebody with it, not riding through the neighborhood terrorizing, but not threatening outside of a self-defense context. Not any other classically criminal use, just mere possession of it, being
So
ready.
if you have a baseball bat in the back seat of your car and a police officer pulls you over and he asks you why you have it, and if you say to defend yourself, right there, you're subjecting yourself to a felony in the state of California. And on top of that, there's all sorts of, in theory, I don't think it's quite enforced this way, but um, even in your home, if you had one in your nightstand. I've heard of prosecutions for having a baseball bat in the back seat of your car. As a caveat, while you certainly are committing a crime if you have a baseball bat to defend yourself next to your nightstand, I um, I I haven't heard them using it quite like that, but that doesn't mean there aren't situations where they have um, gone after someone. And this just comes down to whether the police officer asks you a series of questions, you answer the wrong way, and you say yes, I want that stick for defending yourself. I mean, I had a guy who, well, a friend of mine's a public defender, and he was representing a guy who was at a party and he was caught with the pinata stick.
Hmm.
And I'm sure he was being unruly, but he certainly didn't think he was committing a felony because he had a pinata stick. But the police decided to arrest him for possession of a baton. Now, that's how much this law has morphed over the course of the past 100 years since it was put into effect. That essentially any stick in the right circumstances can put you subject to criminal liability. And even the items that was intended to criminalize, such as a policeman's baton, these are far less dangerous than the weapons at issue in Heller, which were handguns. So, my question is, I mean, why is the government criminalizing in your home the possession of a baton? Why is that a felony? And to me, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's just the government just having been given a little bit of control and it just went crazy.
Wow.
Now, if you have a baseball bat, you and it's not for baseball, well, I mean, you can be going to jail for that. That's not okay.
Right.
My clients, both are military veterans. One served in the United States Marine Corps, the other one served in the United States Air Force, and they both would like to own policeman's batons, such as the ASP, a collapsible baton.
Mhm.
And they both received training on how to safely use them. My client, Tan Tolentino, he was a military police officer and he was trained in the use of the baton there. My other client, Russell Fouts, he's retired. He's was an infantryman, and after the infantry, he got out and he became worked security. And he was licensed to use batons in the great state of Oregon. After leaving Oregon to come to California, he had to dispossess himself of his batons solely because of this law.
Wow.
And that doesn't make a lot of sense, especially since both these gentlemen legally can own firearms here in California. And
Yeah.
you have to ask yourself, I mean, who is this law being used to target as well? It
And
typically
what's your answer to that?
it
Do you-
this law, especially its more outrageous applications, such as with the baseball bat and the piano stick, typically are used to target lower income individuals in the state of California. And for a state that says that it has such a commitment to social justice, it's unfortunate that as a law in the books that in practice is been used to disproportionately attack people that are lower income. The reality is, it's doubtful that if you live in Beverly Hills or where I live, La Jolla is one of the nicer parts of towns, that you're going to be charged with a felony for having a baseball bat after coming back from the batting cage. But, in some of our more lower income parts of California, well, the reality is, I mean, over policing does occur in some areas, and they use these laws to attack honest, law-abiding people that don't understand that we have this crazy law in the books that lets the police, arrest you for having a baseball bat if you don't know exactly how to answer
Right.
them.
And if the issue is, as I contend, the criminalization of innocent conduct, as soon as that is within the discretion of the officer on the scene to, make an issue of this or not, depending on these factors at the scene. Well, if the police officer cannot distinguish between a real criminal and a made up criminal, a non criminal, just because they're both low income, maybe the police officer hasn't been on the job very long or whatever, I don't know, or maybe he has certain prejudices. And if the police officer in question uses his discretion in that way, could victimize innocent people and think that that's not going to be a problem because this person doesn't know how to file a complaint and maybe doesn't have access to attorneys, like people in La Jolla. Like people in La
Yeah,
Jolla, they're going to file a complaint and you're going to be hearing from their attorney. And so police officers, no wonder they don't over police because who wants to deal with all that headache and all that paperwork?
and there are a whole host of laws on the books in California. And just as a side before you go into that, I mean, thankfully, the state of Hawaii last year actually saw the light of day. I filed a lawsuit. I filed the California lawsuit first because it dealt with complete possession. But I filed another lawsuit on the carry of batons in
Cool.
Hawaii afterwards. And
Okay.
uh,
What's that one called? What's that case called?
Yukitaki v. Lopez. And I won that case via consent decree. This is why I bring it up. State of Hawaii, we litigated the case. We litigated the issue of standing on a motion to dismiss, and the judge said we had standing, and that made the state of Hawaii take one good look at their law, and they realized, why have we been banning this for the past 100 years?
Hmm.
Right? We've got cases on the books about, is this a if this stick is for fishing, it's legal. If it's for self-defense, it's not legal. And this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the same stick. And
Yeah.
so state of Hawaii threw in the towel. And for the about a year now, batons have been legal. There have been absolutely no increase in baton crime in the state of Hawaii because they got rid of their law banning the carry of billy clubs. And I guarantee you that that's going to be the same thing in California now that the law has been enjoined. And let me tell you, these laws are just they're based upon unfamiliarity.
Yeah.
Like you were saying with the car,
Yeah.
everyone's familiar with a vehicle, even if you don't drive, been in a car. You know what a car is,
Right.
and you're comfortable.
And pants.
Yeah, pants. people aren't familiar with a butterfly knife. People, when they hear the word billy club, they're not 100% sure what you're even talking about, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So these laws get to stay on the books because they have these unfamiliar terms and they've been around,
Yeah.
at least in the case of the billy club law. And, it's that sort of legislative inertia which lets a lot of just really uh, a lot of things just stay on the books and attack people that just because of unfamiliarity, because the average voter doesn't really have the time to look down at every single law in the books and realize that, yeah, there's a lot of laws on the books that still make a lot of sense. There's a
Hmm.
series of laws in California like this. Some of them I wasn't even familiar with until I started this litigation. In California, a zabuza is a felony now.
Can
Do you
you
know what a
can you
zabuza?
spell that?
I can't. I probably could in a second, but that is a uh, I had to look the term up. My first came, but that's a type of Japanese cane that has a blade inside of it
Hmm.
that you hit a button. I mean, I've never even seen one. I never heard of it. Right?
Yeah.
Who decided to ban that? But
Yeah.
we have another ban on slugshots. Do you know what slungshot is?
I've heard the term, and I have to admit I'm not totally clear I know what it is. It's not a slingshot, right? It's
No, it's
something else.
yeah. At first reading, most people think that
Yeah.
a slungshot is well, it starts off. It's any weight with a rope attached to it is technically a slungshot, and it's
Yeah.
originally from the age of sail. Sailors would
Right.
come into port,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they would have they would there's a particular type of knot that would be used on the mooring lines, and they would use these, during the pirate ages. Somebody's trying to board, they'd get this particular knot. There's a rope. It's part of a rope. They swing it around and they attack. They fight off the pirates. It's an impromptu weapon. And as time goes by, they'd take these into port with them. And because sailors come a little bit rowdy after 6 months at sea, they'd end up getting into fights with them. And because these ropes had gotten hardened from months in the salt and sea, they'd be almost as hard as a metal object apparently, or
Hmm.
or a wooden bludgeon. And so that law is morphed to this day. It is a felony to possess a slungshot, and that can include anything that has a weight with a with a rope attachment. I've heard of an example. They tried to go after a guy for having a stock full of quarters. That's right. And they
Yeah.
were like, "Well, isn't that technically a prohibited slingshot?"
Hmm.
I have traditional Chamorro jewelry. Chamorros are the people of Guam and a number of other islands, and I their traditional jewelry is, it's got the rope for the necklace, and they tend to be larger pieces of rock, right? And sometimes I wonder if that there's some arguments to be made there that
Right.
this jewelry, but
There's
the
a
bottom.
there's a due process issue here because they're of fair notice. Like you have to have due process implies there's fair notice that the conduct in question is prohibited, right? How do you have fair notice if you don't even know if it's that subjective whether the item is one thing or another?
And I mean, I think that's the big part of the claim is, these laws are irrationally vague.
Hmm. Yeah, and then that would disproportionately hurt the kind of people you're talking about, which are people that maybe don't have at that time moment in their lives the resources to fight back or to know how to handle questions by the police at that time. Can I ask you, how did you get interested in this personally, and why do you believe in the Second Amendment?
Well, I've always had a strong belief in the Bill of Rights in general. My family, on my father's side, I my father's from northern Indiana, real small, little rural town out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the and I remember I'd spend my summers out there in this on my grandfather's farm. That's where I learned how to shoot. Um, and my uncle was, a big NRA member. We'd always get a copy of the National Rifleman, and I just remember reading those 8, 9 years old. Learning about the Second Amendment, and it's and then on that's just I've always grown up with a deep belief, and my family on my other side, they were refugees. They fled a communist state, and
Wow.
it's just the reality is it's things would be a lot better if they'd had a right to defend themselves.
Wow.
You know,
What communist state did they flee?
Vietnam, and it's the reality is the I think you see that with a lot of second generation immigrants
Mm,
that Judge Benitez, he had to leave communist Cuba, so he's seen what
yeah.
happens when you disarm a society. The reality is a lot of the people that are proponents of gun control and weapons control are wealthy, so
Yes.
they've never had to deal with being pulled over, being asked why your kid's little league bat is in your back seat. And they also tend to have lived in, they don't have that background where their immediate family or themselves have had to leave totalitarian governments.
Wow. That is a really insightful point. Now, when you were in college, what did you major in?
I political science. I also have a separate degree in information systems.
And what at what point did you decide I want to be an attorney? You're shooting on is your uncle in Indiana. You're
Yeah,
learning how to
well,
shoot.
I I decided I didn't want to be. I didn't want to write code for 20 years. To be honest, I love JavaScript and object-oriented programming as a hobby. But just the idea of spending the next 20 years writing code was just,
Wow.
that's why I picked up the poli sci degree. To be honest, was I enjoyed uh, I enjoyed it, but it was I had always thought about the it's I gosh I a lot of the guys I was in the service with, they uh, were big Second Amendment advocates, and I can remember sitting around my unit, just
What service?
I was in the Marine Reserves, and I was a tank crewman
Thank you for your service.
on the Abram, and it's a lot of the guys, they complain about California and just about how a lot of stuff just they didn't agree with, And then I went to UCSD from undergraduate, and there I realized that it's a small minority of people that are willing to try and change the state, you know. And I got involved in college Republicans there, and I just I was got pretty involved in political activism while I was in college with CRs, and the afterwards I went and I I thought that a lot of people go to law school, and I really wanted to get involved in politics, and I thought to myself, law school was a good bet. I was also I was playing with a PhD as well, but I uh, another life I'd be researching game theory somewhere, but due to my military commitments, I wasn't leaving San Diego, and USD happened to be right down the street, and the fact that I was um, I decided, well, if we're staying in San Diego, USD is a great school. Let's um, get our Juris Doctor from there. And when I was
Yep.
there, I was very active in the Federal Society. I met a great constitutional law professor out there, Michael Ramsey, who I am still very close with. He now is part of the Center for Originalism at the University of San Diego. It's something that opened up after I graduated. And, he I found out that there's not a lot of us out there, but there are still people in California that don't believe the state is, that believe the state's still worth fighting for, And
Yeah.
so that's what got me to law school, and I think I had a little bit more of academic bent than most academic interests. Plenty of very smart people that
Right.
went to my law school, but most of them were looking to go to get corporate law jobs. And
Right.
that wasn't just really just wasn't anything that interested me. So so I mean that's just how it went. I thankfully due to I got involved in Second Amendment law because, well, frankly, no one was doing it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Is I reached out to all the national organizations like the NRA, and they just had no interest in pursuing the Second Amendment in Hawaii. And well, at the time, uh, Heller and McDonald had just been released, and there were a number of national carry cases that were being filed all across the country. And I was out there working. I just got done working for a government office. I worked on contract. And I just finished a government contract with them, and decided now that I'm on my own, let's file a Second Amendment case. And I with a friend of mine, and well, we ended up shortly thereafter, a gentleman named George Young was in trial court. And to be honest, I thought that I was just got to do this one case. There's handgun carry cases being filed all across the nation, and why not? I felt strongly that the state of Hawaii should be represented in this national conversation. Why should New Jersey, New York, California, Maryland be the only states? I mean, Hawaii is a
Yeah.
state. Well, so
Right.
I decided I was just going to do this one case,
What year?
and
What year was that? The Young case.
no, this case was Baker v.
Baker.
Kelo, and
Okay.
that was my first case. And
Did you mention somebody named George Young?
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay, all right.
The Young case, I filed the Baker case, and around this after we went up and argued that the first time, a pro se litigant named George Young was released, had been dismissed from the trial court, and George Young was a is a native Hawaiian, and he's a former Green Beret. Um, Lived in other than military service, lived on the Big Island of Hawaii his whole life, and I'd had a little bit of communication with him during the Baker case. He'd sent me a few emails, let me know about his old cases, just want to applaud me for fighting for the state of Hawaii. And I saw you got.
What year was that? I'm just trying to get. How far after McDonald was that?
I filed the Baker case in 2011,
Okay,
and
that's pretty soon.
yeah, George Young got filed. He filed his case in 2012. So I've been litigating Baker for about a year when um, George Young got filed. He filed a lawsuit pro se. It was his third pro se lawsuit, and it just happened to be that Mr. Baker, the first lawsuit, he was in the Navy. He decided to leave Hawaii, and um, I, George Young had just gotten dismissed. He was doing a carry case, and
Are these both
I,
carry cases? These are both
yes,
carry? Okay.
yeah, and I felt I didn't like how he'd been dismissed. He hadn't been allowed to show up. A pro se means you're the you're your own attorney. You don't have a lawyer,
Right.
and he just simply couldn't find a lawyer that would take his case. And
That is incredible. That is
you know,
absolutely incredible.
and despite what the Supreme Court's mandated, he wasn't given leave to amend. He wasn't allowed to show up. I really felt like it was a very insulting opinion that they wrote to this military veteran, and they gave him less due process than your average prisoner that's filed a lawsuit from jail. Some convicted murderer that's complaining about I don't know the what time the lights turn off in his prison cell, right? And
When you say he
it's
wasn't allowed to show up, what do you mean by that? He wasn't allowed to come into the court?
well, he was dismissed on a motion to dismiss without any ability to argue his case. And typically, a pro se litigant, you're allowed to show up, argue your case. But I mean, he also was dismissed without leave to amend. And that's a rule in there that you're supposed to be allowed to amend your complaint to comport with the court's order. That didn't happen. I mean, a whole host of other things. And, I'm looking at this guy. I've just done an appeal up to the Ninth Circuit, my first one. I've got the Baker case running contemporaneously, and I'm seeing someone that really deserves an attorney and isn't going to be able to afford one. And even if he had the money, probably couldn't find one, to be honest, in Hawaii to take a Second Amendment case. And I figured I could take his case and help him out. I remember telling him, it's I can't, I'm a brand new attorney. I can't promise you much other than the fact I'm going to try and get you your day in court, and frankly, he didn't have a lot of options. So, and I'd spoke to him a few times before, and we were talking about the case, and well, I agreed to take his case, and I took it up to the Ninth Circuit, and yeah, here we are. And that case ultimately went up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Um,
What was the
I
resolution in that case?
we
What happened at the Ninth Circuit and then what happened at the Supreme Court?
I won in front of a three-judge panel at the Ninth Circuit. Then the case went in banc in front of 11 judges,
Man,
and Ninth Circuit became the first court in the country to say there's absolutely no right outside the home. The phrase "bear" is superfluous. And
was that happening at the same time as Peruta? Was
no,
that resolved at this?
this all happened after Florida.
After
Uh,
Peruta.
yes, far after Peruta. This happened at the exact same time as Bruin was happening. And so there was already a circuit split.
Was this a knife carrying case?
No, it was
Or was it
handgun carry.
handgun case? Okay.
And it's the yeah, they took this
Well,
that
because Peruta, right? Peruta was the San Diego based case, one initially at the three judge panel. I think it was in 2014. I think O'Scanlan wrote that, or I don't know how he's got this Irish
yeah,
name.
O'Scanlan, Darman O'Scanlan wrote both the Peruta opinion and the original three judge opinion for Young.
And here we are, St. Patrick's Day week, go O'Scanlan. But then that got overturned at the unbanked panel, right?
Yes,
And so
and
wasn't
the
that already
Peruta,
the circuit? That would be the precedent at the circuit level. So how did the three judge panel in your case, did they go against that precedent or?
no, what Peruta said is that there's absolutely no right to concealed carry,
Okay.
but it reserved the question of whether there's a right to open carry. Now, George Young was agnostic as to whether he wanted to open carry or concealed carry. He wanted either or. So his open carry claim stayed alive and was heard immediately afterwards. And the three judge panel said, well, if there's no right to concealed carry, if the term bear means anything, there has to be a right to open carry.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
I now remember. Okay, sorry,
yeah,
I've read so many of these things. I now remember the open carry, and I remember thinking how awesome that was as the time it was happening. And I'm a little bit starstruck, Alan, right now because now I realize I'm talking to you, the attorney that you won before the three judge panel and Young, right?
yes, yes. And
Dude, that's awesome. You
well,
are like a hero, man.
thanks. But yeah, so
I had a senior moment. Sorry, I forgot all this, and now just it came back to me. Okay, sorry.
well, now the case went from 11 judges, and those 11 judges were, predominantly Democrat appointees, said there was no right to carry whatsoever outside the home. And that they created a very large circuit split because every other court said there either is a right to carry outside the home or assumed there was a right to carry outside the home.
Yeah.
And, the Supreme Court now, with an extremely wide circuit split, decided to take the Bruin case. And well, they took ours too. Unfortunately, we're about 2 months late. So Bruin got the lead opinion, and the Young case was decided the after the Bruin case, and the other said, "Look at Bruin,
We were
uh,
remanded. Well,
yeah, and
okay.
vacate the Ninth Circuit's opinion." We went back to the Ninth Circuit. Ninth Circuit sent it back down, and well, the county came to a settlement that included that took care of that resolved the whole situation. And now people are carrying handguns in on the Big Island.
So it was resolved the way it was. So it was remanded, then it was resolved by some kind of stipulation
Yeah, settlement.
just for the county of the Big Island, not
Yes,
for any of
and
the other counties.
well, all the counties started issuing after that, but
Oh,
the agreement itself was just to the county of Hawaii, but because the county was the only was the only plaintiff, but we
so okay. So if you're not familiar with Hawaii, the county is goes by the island. So the Big Island is called Hawaii. It's a little bit confusing because that's also the name of the state. um, I remember being on Oahu. I lived on Oahu, and the whole island is the county of Honolulu, I believe, right?
yes,
Okay. So you got got one of the islands, and then all the other islands kind of fell into line. I guess with Bruin, they'd have to, right? So is that how it worked
Yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, well, that's
Whatever
sort of.
happened with the Baker case?
Oh, the Baker case. Our client was in the Navy. He got out. He started working, and he decided he wanted to move to the mainland. So,
Okay.
yeah, so we
So
just
it was a
dismissed
moot.
the case.
Okay.
Yeah. But
You were about to say something. I interrupted you.
so now um, we have the series of lawsuits we've had to file over the years. I mean, I, I mean, just case I like to bring up. Just this issue is not resolved, to say the least. I mean, yeah, they're issuing CCWs, but they want it to make it so that they're not any good for anything.
Hmm.
Um,
Sensitive
the
places.
Yeah, so I have a case called Wolford v. Lopez. Yeah, I'm representing three Maui residents that would like to carry. And well, after they got their CCWs issued, well, the state of Hawaii said, well, that's great, but we're going to ban carry essentially everywhere except for the street and sidewalk. We had a map made. I mean, 96.4% of the state is a no issue area. There's no carry area.
That's crazy.
So we received a restraining order and a preliminary injunction against implementation of that law.
Was this the beach case? The
Yes, the
gun on a
beach.
beach case? Yeah.
That's correct. And
You just gave us the title for this episode, Guns on Beaches or something.
yeah,
That'll catch people's eye.
yeah. But so we've got that and a lawsuit over uh, the Big Island said, sure, we'll issue permits, but you have to waive your attorney-client privilege in order to um, get a permit. So we had to file a lawsuit over that.
Excuse me? Wow.
You had to waive attorney-client privilege and waive
What?
your doctor's privilege, your priest privilege, your spousal privilege, all those privileges to the county. So we filed a follow-up lawsuit. They settled on that.
So they were looking at the permit as some kind of contract
Yes.
that would be totally impermissible in any other context, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'll be arguing next month. I'll be arguing the Wolford case at the Ninth Circuit. Just filed a lawsuit over the some of our clients in Honolulu have been waiting a year to get their CCWs from the time they applied. So a year delay is just way too long, and that's the bottom line.
Okay, so you got the post Bruin resistance, right? Basically, it's the resistance to Bruin, and one of those issues is sensitive places, carrying in sensitive places, the expansion of, well, some of these sensitive places really should be that were in place already. They shouldn't belong there. But then what happened was after Bruin, they start adding to sensitive places, basically make the carry permit meaningless. And they're adding beaches, they're adding banks, right? Post offices were already on there, but now there's an issue with post offices. Um, what churches, basically places of worship, with the tax in places of worship, like in Jewish synagogues and churches. That's a big deal if you can't defend yourself, right? Um, that and then you got the issue of timeliness of the application. So if you can constantly delay and delay and delay the application, just call it administration, some bureaucracy reason, then you can basically deny people their constitutional rights and just basically cover it over paperwork and bureaucracy. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So
How
we've
do you
had
how do
filed.
you argue against timeliness though? How do you what's that argument look like?
Well, the Supreme Court said in Bruin that excessive delays just simply cannot be allowed. And well, they didn't define what an excessive delay was, but you got to imagine a year from the time you apply. Imagine if you had to, if you were waiting a year, you still hadn't got your voter ID, or
Wow.
if you hadn't gotten
Wow.
your
That's a
permit.
great,
You know, I
yeah.
mean,
Driver's
there's absolutely
license.
no way the court would put up with that. I mean,
Right. I mean,
it's
with my DMV in California, even as crazy as California is, when you pay online for your registration of your car, at least the renewal, it says on the receipt it will be mailed within 5 business days. So why don't we have that? Is it a funding issue? So the counties are run by board of supervisors, I think. They fund the thing. Are they fighting back by not funding permit offices?
no,
Yep.
I just think it's a bureaucratic mess right now.
Okay.
I mean, I maybe if you have me back on the show in 6 months, I'll have a better answer for you. To be honest, we have no idea why it's taking so long. Because I mean, some permits are being issued, some aren't. And it just seems like some clerks operate a lot faster than other clerks. You know, I mean, I think a lot of this just look. I used to work for the Hawaiian government, and
Yeah.
it's I don't want to go into too much
I know
detail, but
what you mean. Yeah.
let's just say that it's not
Yeah.
unusual levels of bureaucracy are pretty par for the course for the Hawaiian government.
Hmm. Hmm.
And just yeah, it's
Well, because I mean, you could shuffle paperwork and call it work, and you're collecting a paycheck, and that's how a lot of these government workers are, unfortunately. And some of them are good people too. I mean, I think after a while, let's say you're a good person and you get a job in that system, you can get so beaten down by the culture that, it's hard to know how to be a good bureaucrat anymore because there's hardly any examples around you and you stand out and people don't like it if you're really like a go-getter and a hard charger. They don't like it. So that's what I've noticed.
uh,
I've got a former student of mine that works in the board of supervisors for the LA County. And I know for a fact that they fund the permit office for LA County Sheriff, and they their resistance starts at the funding level, which is within their discretion, right? So that's why it's hard to get a constitutional issue out of this. When you're funding, how do you get your fingernails under the funding issue? Because really, uh, LA County is the most populous county, I think, in the United States. And all of a sudden, you got like 100 years, or I don't know how long the precedent is. It's at least 90 years, because I have an application from LA from the 20s. Um, but so they've been issuing for that long and had the enormous discretion to deny for that long. You overturn that system, then you have tens of thousands of people applying. Well, that's going to take a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of manpower. That's true. That's true. So, um, yeah, I think we do need to have you come back. I'm like, I think you're a hero. I'm just going to say it. I think you're
well,
an American hero, brother, and I salute you.
well, thank you very much. It's I it's got to take a long time to get anything, especially in Hawaii, changed. I mean, let me just conclude with this real quick story of my alien litigation. Uh, One of the first wins, well, my first win in the Second Amendment was Hawaii had a ban on green card holders owning firearms.
Wow.
And so I had a client who he was a competition shooter in Australia, and he owned a lot of custom-made guns. And he thought to himself, well, his wife had gotten a job in Hawaii, and they decided to move there, and he assumed that he'd have unrestricted access to well, maybe that's the wrong word, but he thought they'd be able to own guns. It's America, and if he didn't think he'd have less rights than Australia. Well, the reality was he wasn't allowed to bring any of his guns in from Australia because he was a green card holder. And there's a whole body of law that says that a green card holder has certain fundamental rights, and both under the Second Amendment and under the Equal Protection Clause.
Right.
So I brought a lawsuit on his behalf, and Judge, the Hawaii District Court, Judge Michael Seabright said, this is very obviously unconstitutional. He wrote a very thorough opinion. And my client was able to get his guns. I thought that's the end of the matter. A year later, I get contacted by another green card holder who was from England. The English green card holder was told that, yes, technically the law's gone and you can own guns, but the county of Honolulu has put in a new law that says if you want to own a gun, you have to get clearance for your home country that you're qualified under Hawaii law to own guns. So
that is okay. What could possibly go wrong?
Yes, we never actually figured out how he was actually going to achieve that because the embassy wouldn't do it. So I guess in theory he would have had to go home and to get somebody to review Hawaii law.
Wow,
say that he had committed a crime back in England that would get him that would prohibit him under Hawaii law. I mean,
what if you came from a communist country and they don't think anybody can have guns?
Well, what if you came from a country that was just had a state of civil unrest? There just wasn't a government to get clearance. So we bring a lawsuit on his behalf. And thankfully this time the judge was like, did we just deal with this? So this is essentially the same. And I had a little bit of a little quip about that. Did we fight the American Revolution so that England couldn't tell us who could own guns in our country? And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how much the county appreciated that, but they threw in the towel.
Good for you, man.
I thought the issue was done.
Oh, geez.
So a couple years later, same English guy. Now this English guy has become a great gun rights supporter. Actually helps run a advocacy group in Hawaii Firearms Coalition, which
cool.
A small group of friends of mine run that. And,
I follow them on one of the social medias. Yeah,
and him and an Army veteran, Todd Yukitaki, they started it and got John Abbott to be the third man on the board. So I always like how I had a big hand in the founding because I got
that's awesome. Yeah,
the English Andrew his gun rights. But so we think we're done. Now this guy wants to apply for a CCW. They say, hey, yes, you got an injunction against the possession law. Didn't get a injunction against the CCW law. So we're still applying this against you. So now you can't even as much apply for a CCW because you're a green card holder.
Jeez.
And I'm thinking, all right, one more lawsuit.
Yeah.
We file our lawsuit. They throw the towel again. They've already been told twice, right? But I know I'm dragging this out, but I'm trying to make a point about how hard it is to change things and how much of a fight this is. And I've got one more, and I'll be done with this. So a couple more years go by. An American Samoan shows up calls me and says, I can't get a gun because I'm not a citizen. So now we've gotten injunctions against all these various green card restrictions. And he's been told that he's not an alien because he was born in the United States,
Oh my
but he's not
gosh.
a citizen. That's because America Samoa is a territory of the United States, an unincorporated territory. And technically, it's actually the only unincorporated territory. We have several incorporated territories.
Yeah, like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is incorporated,
Yeah,
right?
so under the
Yeah.
Organic Act in the 70s, the the incorporated territories became citizens, but not unincorporated territories. American Samoas are one remaining unincorporated territory. So he's being told, I cannot own a gun because I was born in the United States, but I'm a national, but technically not a citizen. This guy had served the Air National Guard in Utah. So I'm just thinking,
So he's a
this
part of the
can't be right.
militia. In other words, he was a part of the militia.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, how can they still be doing this?
Wow.
So I file yet another
Insane.
lawsuit. And once again, I go in front of the judge. And this is stretched over many years, mind you. This is 2020 this is stretched over a 6-year period.
Are you getting different
And
judges here? Are you getting different judges or it's the same judge?
there's 2 judges at issue. This is the judge for the American Samoan case, the same one that I dealt with for my original case, 2014. And
Hmm.
you can tell, I mean, he has to have a, very professional judicial demeanor, but you can tell he was shocked at yet another alien lawsuit. We've told you time and time again, you can't do this. Now, this guy's an American. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
He's not an alien.
And he's a person,
Yeah.
which
So,
is the relevant word for the Bill of Rights.
yeah. And I remember the judge, mind you, this is 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And I'm very much paraphrasing, but he's was just, I have a lot going on because of the pandemic. And it should be very clear to all the parties the outcome of this case.
Wow.
I expect something, I strongly advise there to be settlement talks. And, so here we are. Now,
So they
4
don't do,
federal lawsuits. And this
do
is
they
one,
even have a gun store in Samoa?
well, no, this guy's living in the United States. He's living in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, all these lawsuits are in Hawaii.
Oh
He's
man.
being told that because he's living in Hawaii after he got out of the military, moved from Utah to Hawaii. And now he's being told that he can't own a gun in Hawaii because he's a U.S. national and
Yeah,
neither an alien nor a citizen.
man.
And
Perfect
so that,
storm.
that that took 4 lawsuits. And I guarantee you down the road there'll be some strange carve out that we didn't anticipate. That they're just going to keep pushing. That's just how much they want to keep their gun control laws. That they will just go right to the
Yeah,
end.
right. Well, when people ask me, are you a conservative? Actually, usually they don't ask, they just assume. I say, well, it depends on what you mean by conservative. What you just the the way you just said that, Hawaii is extremely conservative. Look at how much resistance to change that you just mentioned. So I just think that that's an interesting thing to point out, that the conservatives may not be the people you think are conservatives. And for all you students out there listening, you might want to rethink the difference between conservative and, while some of these judges are Republican, I noticed that in your teeter, or the case that we mentioned earlier, before the Ninth Circuit last year, they were all Trump appointees. The butterfly knife case, you pulled a
Well,
3-judge panel. No, sorry, 2 of them were Trump appointees,
one was a
and
Bush.
one was a Bush appointee. And you got a favorable ruling for civil liberties for minorities, and then just describing all the stuff that you had to do for aliens um against a democratic state. And it's just interesting. I mean, to step back and go, wait, do we have our categories right? And just the way people talk about Republicans and Trump as being against minorities, you've painted a very clear picture, and it's all factual what you're saying. It's not embellished at all. That actually there's a record here you might want to pay attention to. Yeah, as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's so this takeaway from this is that I've lot of people thought the Brood opinion was going to come out. That was just going to be the end of the matter. The reality is, I've already had to file several lawsuits to address the recalcitrance of the state of Hawaii in issuing CCW permits, and I've been engaged in numerous out of court discussions in addition to that. And I expect this to have to continue for at least a couple more years just on this issue. And I just
Did
a
you
lot of
ever get
people.
did you ever get paid for the Young case? Did you do that in pro bono?
I didn't charge. That was a pro bono case for Mr. Young, but uh, we certainly received some attorney's fees at the end.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you won, you prevailed.
yeah, we won.
How does that work for people who don't know? I'm not a total expert in it either, but I do know that in some cases you can get attorney's fees. Is that a separate motion you have to?
Yeah. So how it works is if I am deemed the prevailing party in a civil rights action, then I'm entitled to attorney's fees from the government who violated my client's civil rights.
Wow.
So, how?
But do you have to
So,
fight for those attorney's fees, or is that a matter
absolutely.
of, yeah.
In the in my second alien case, just as an example, the federal court said that we settled, we won, and we filed our attorney's fees motion, and you know we were they had me at $150 an hour, which doesn't
That seems
that
low to
makes
me.
sound yeah, it sounds like a lot of money for
No, it
most
sounds
professional.
like about half.
It's about half of
Yeah.
that's the lowest you possibly could. Anyway, so
Did you accept
you're
that?
right.
Did,
And no, I had to appeal that up to the Ninth Circuit, and I won. I have a opinion at the Ninth Circuit where they said the trial court got it wrong. It's Roberts v. City and County Honolulu, and even on that issue, I've had to. That's changed how attorney's fees motions have been done in Hawaii, and not just for Second Amendment cases, but for all civil rights cases, police brutality, you name it. Actually, all attorneys' fees motions in general. I mean, it's not just civil rights cases. But
well, okay,
yeah,
so let me I'll do this for the audience as far as the host goes, because I need to tie this is another issue. Folks, people like Mr. Beck are putting it all on the line. They're taking on a pro bono case. It does matter who is president and who appoints judges, because the judges are setting precedent. The precedent is helping to decide these cases. And if he's a prevailing party, he gets to fund this activity. And this is a huge thing, because my guess is you're not a billionaire. Maybe you are, I don't know, but you're not self-funding this. You do need these attorney's fees to keep going.
absolutely, absolutely,
So this is a huge, so who's president, who's in the Senate confirming these judges that are good judges, they impact the ability to even fund this litigation to help these people. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. I'm even holding back. I can't believe they offered you $150. So you have to now, the work you're doing to fight for the attorney's fees, does that get folded into the attorney's
It
fees?
does, yes.
Okay.
And I've actually,
Jeez.
I've done a lot of attorney's fees work over the years because, I've won a lot of these cases, to be honest. I mean, a lot more than
That's awesome.
anyone else, well, most everyone else, I should say. I'm sure there's a couple other attorneys that have prevailed, but and it's that's a whole separate body of litigation. Actually, I have been somewhat surprised at how these cases are hard to win. So I mean, I'm one of the few attorneys that have gotten experience
Yeah.
in fighting for attorneys' fees. So I have a bit of a niche knowledge of that issue.
So when you win at the three-judge panel, do you get attorney's fees at that point if it goes in bank? Do you
No,
get attorney's fees before, or is it at the end of everything?
you have to win.
Okay, the whole thing. Okay. So if you win at this Ninth Circuit, it does not go in bank.
Well,
The U.S. Supreme Court denies cert. You get your attorney's fees at that point.
yeah. So I mean, here's an example of how it can be difficult to get attorney's fees. And honestly, it's been I filed a series of cases challenging stun gun bans across the United States.
Hmm.
Um, I prevailed in
Was this
um,
before Cayetano?
no, this is immediately afterwards. Um, I prevailed in New York, New Jersey, um, and Rhode Island. And I all three of those states had bans on stun guns. I overturned all of them,
Oh,
and I also,
wow. Holy cow. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I also overturned bans on stun guns in New Orleans, a couple cities in Maryland, and then we handled a few other cases out of court. We just, sent them to ban letters. For example, Philadelphia uh, and Tacoma, Washington. We just took care of that out of court. But so I filed a lawsuit in Hawaii, and what Hawaii did, because they saw I was winning in New York and New Jersey, etc., we litigated the case for a number of years, and they knew they were going to lose.
Hmm.
So at the end of it, they legalized tasers before I could win in court.
Okay, so it was moot.
And yeah, and just after several years of litigation, just a couple months before the judge had a rule on it, they uh, legalized them. And yeah, you know what? Didn't get paid for that one. You know,
Oh,
and
that's such crap.
and that's
Okay, so if you didn't follow that, if they change the law, then the judge has to rule that it's moot, right? So it means the case is dismissed and you didn't win, you didn't prevail on the merits. And then that's winning on the merits is what's required for attorney's fees. So basically all that work you didn't get paid for.
exactly. So there's a doctrine called sovereign immunity in the United States.
Yeah.
You're suing a state, you can't sue for damages. If you're suing a county or a person, a municipality, you can sue for something called nominal damages. So if I'm suing, say, the county of Honolulu and they violate, for let's say they had a taser ban, I could sue for $1. That would keep the lawsuit alive. And they couldn't pull that. And but for example, the New York Rifle Pistol Association, not the Bruin case, but the one before that,
Yeah, I remember that one.
had
They
had
changed the law and it was moot. Yeah.
yeah, but had they asked, because they were suing against the city of New York, the city of New York, had they asked for $1, they could have kept that case alive.
Ah,
But when it's a state law, you can't ask for that dollar. If they get rid of their law,
I see.
yeah. So I'd love to be
I
able to
see.
do these
Yeah.
cases full time, but the reality is, I have to have a certain amount of work that deals, that there's guaranteed payment because I don't make a lot of money off the
Mm-hmm.
constitutional law cases, and
Yeah.
it takes many years to finish them. So, if unfortunately, in these types of cases, the deck is stacked against you from the onset, and that's just the reality is,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I keep a separate practice that I just keep apart from the constitutional litigation, and that's reason why laws like the Billy Club and butterfly knives are still on the books. The reality is
Yes. Good.
all the
That's great. Yeah.
virtually all the litigators in Second Amendment law are funded by a nonprofit organization, such as the National Rifle Association.
Or
And
SAF. Yeah.
or Gun Owners America. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to worry about getting paid for the lawsuits. They get paid up front. And if they get the attorney's fees, the nonprofit is compensated, is made whole for all the money they've spent on lawyers. So how that works as a practical matter is the big issues in this country, such as the AR-15 bans, the magazine bans, are gone after. They have
Right.
because the reality is the NRA can fundraise off challenging an AR-15 ban or a magazine ban. They can't fundraise off a billy club case or a butterfly knife case. That's just the reality. I mean,
Yeah.
these
That's
are
very
considered,
interesting.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's why there's a whole host of issues like tasers that are stay on the books, even though at least I believe those are one probably easier lawsuits and to go after because they are greater infringements on
Mhm.
the people's rights. Because I mean, there's no rational basis for banning a knife with two handles, a stick, a stun gun, especially when the Supreme Court has said a handgun is protected by the Constitution. On the other hand, look, this is just the reality. I think you have a right to an AR-15. I certainly believe the Second Amendment protects one, but it's a whole different argument when you're arguing an AR-15 case from a court because, for better or worse, there's a lot of more politics, a lot more emotion, and there's a lot more data at issue that you have to overcome to win one of those cases. Whereas, the reality is there's not a lot out there that the government can cite to that says, well, having a stick to your home is going to be the end of the world. Civil anarchy is going to overcome.
So,
And I mean, that's just the financial reality of this body of law, and why there's so many just very dumb laws just in the United States. I mean, the state of Rhode Island bans kung fu weapons.
oh my gosh.
That's a yeah. I was doing my stun gun case out there, and I was just shocked that was in their code is that you can't own stun kung fu weapons. Yeah,
So
that's a law that needs to be get rid of. But
how does your plaintiff get standing in that case? They just say they want to own one, and that's enough for standing?
uh, yes, that's outside of the District of Columbia. That would go beyond the scope of this talk, but for the vast majority of the country, um, you just simply if you have a genuine professed desire to own a prohibited item, that is sufficient. The Supreme Court has said on many occasions that a desire to own something confers standing. I mean, I think the seminal case on that is Craig v. Boren.
Really? What year was that?
I don't remember, but it's Craig v. Boren, and that has to do with sales of beer to 18 through 20-year-olds.
And that's an
And
Article 3 standing case precedent.
yeah, it's basically
Yeah.
there's a law in the books. I can't remember what state. You could buy normal alcohol percentage beer if you're a girl, if you're a woman, but if you were a young man, you couldn't between the ages of 18 through 20.
Wow. Uh, the desire, the genuineness of the desire, does that get litigated? Is that open for discussion or review, or do the defendants, do they challenge the genuineness of the desire at the standing level?
It can be. It's nothing that's like that heavily litigated though, because I mean it's
How do you establish that?
well, it
You
just
don't understand. I really want
yeah.
kung fu weapons. I have a collection of kung
Well,
fu.
my clients are always people that genuinely want to own something. For example, my baton clients. I mean, they both owned batons at different points in their lives. They just can't in California, and they have a track record of owning them. My
Gotcha.
client's wife, my butterfly knives. I mean, they both own butterfly knives at different points in their lives, and when moving to Hawaii, they had to get rid of them to comply with the law. So I mean, I tend to not just get I mean, I tend to find people that
Yeah.
genuinely you
Yeah.
know
I gotcha. So, but the issue going after these billy club type butterfly knife cases that typically fly under the radar, they're not fundraising issues, you wouldn't think. Like I can't think of an NRA magazine I've ever gotten that had like a billy club on it, and it's just like your rights are threatened. They're gonna make you register your billy club and serialize your ghost billy club or whatever. It's not really a crazy issue, but it sounds like what you're saying is you're more likely to get paid attorney's fees on those small issues because they're easier to win.
well, I don't think about it necessarily in terms of like whether you're going to get paid. It's just simply an issue of to me
Hmm.
these laws are just so flagrantly unconstitutional.
Yeah.
I mean, and I see a need for myself there because
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to file AR-15 case when there's five other ones being litigated in the United States,
Yeah.
and I don't I mean, there's other people doing it, and
Yeah. Well, I've driven through La Jolla, and it's not a cheap place to live. And I'm concerned for people that want to have a normal life for being an attorney, and um and you're self-funding this, right? I mean, you're taking a chance when you take on one of these cases. You have all that labor, and I hear you. It's a labor of love, and you're a patriot. I mean, can we still use that word, patriot? But yeah, so we thank you for coming on, Alan.
well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Keep doing the good work. I can't wait to have you back.
That sounds great. Okay, well,
All right, Alan, you get the last word.
if people watch this and they don't get anything else out of this podcast, I hope they can get this. It's hard to change the system, but it can be done. I've spent the past 12 years of my life, 13 years of my life, I should say, slowly but steadily getting change in a direction I think is good for the Republic. And, if there's more people engaged in our society, I think that's for the best. And, the takeaway is you can change things in the United States if you're passionate about it.
And I would add, change things for the better, which I think you're doing, and I think you're a hero.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.